I love that about you, is that you are an integrative physician, right? It's because it's always all the pieces of the puzzle. And of course, being in the health field myself, I see all of those pieces of it, right? And I like to focus on the very material, like food that you can take and herbs and that kind of stuff, because that's fun to me. But it certainly is not the whole picture, as you're alluding to. There's a much deeper picture going on, which is the emotional components, mental components, familial components, how your mom and dad treated you, your feelings about that. So, it's many, many layers of emotional.
Yeah, and the only reason I brought that out is just that it's very easy when you're using natural approaches to take an allopathic approach. And even though you're using something natural like we were talking about, you can use it as a prescription drug, and you're using a natural supplement to treat a problem when you really need to treat the cause and treat all of the conditions that are contributing to the factor, and not just look for a symptom-based solution.
Right on. Let's talk a little bit about food and just some of the things that come out of the Vedic approach and some things that come out of the ancient Chinese approach about inflammation, which inflammation, of course, is like inflame, on fire. And let's talk about cooling off inflammatory conditions with food. And one of my favorite tools to do that, it's one of the most regarded in the entire litany of raw food information and all the research that's been done on raw foods in the last 150 years, which is something so basic and so much fun, especially for kids, is vegetable juicing. And in particular, celery and cucumber juice. Wow. I was like one of those kids, when I ate tuna salad when I was a kid, I always had left those little celery U's at the bottom of the bowl. I hated celery. But when I got into doing juices, I turned on to celery like nobody's business. In fact, I was in a canyon here in California yesterday on a hike, and we found wild celery growing, and we ate it.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Celery is very rich in electrolytes. It has a cooling effect on the body, which is really, it's an anti-inflammatory effect, the cooling effect. Cucumber as well. And if you're wondering, what do I eat? I'm snacking on stuff and I know it's not good for me. Eat a cucumber a day. Eat 2 cucumbers a day. Get something in your body that's cooling, that's anti-inflammatory. It's very good for your kidneys. It's rich in natural high spin water. And it's also, so digestible, especially if you get the skin off and you just eat the inner part of the cucumber. Really an important food that can be in our diet. And overall, in my opinion, I feel like it's one of the best foods ever, is just a simple cucumber. Cooling, you're cool as a cucumber, as you may recall. And a simple juice, celery, cucumber, there's no sugar. It's an instant turn on for energy. It has an instant, drawing effect of toxins out of your system due to the chlorophyll that's present in the celery. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's actually one of the least expensive vegetables you can get. I was inspired or re-inspired again to start juicing after going to the longevity conference, and I've been doing that the last few months. And that's the primary component of my juice is celery and cucumber. So I couldn't agree more. And you can combine some other things. Do you have any specific thoughts about fennel? Because it's somewhat like the celery, but I'm wondering if there's any concerns, or do you like fennel in juice?
I like fennel in juice occasionally. Fennel is an invasive species here in Southern California. It was brought over by the Spanish 500 years ago, and it's growing everywhere. It's an absolute weed. Fennel is implicated for headaches. If you have chronic migraines, for example, you're supposed to do fennel juice. That's, according to the legends and lore of raw food nutrition over the last 150 years. And I've had people do that over the years and reported that it helped them. So I like fennel. It's indigenous to the Mediterranean. It has, a very strong cooling effect, as does celery and cucumber. And generally, it's a thumbs up. In that family, for me personally, I really like dill. Dill is related to fennel, but I really like dill. And by the way, fennel, dill, and everything that's in that family is very good for producing breast milk in women when you're breastfeeding.
That's good. A good hint, because we know the best nutrition an infant can get is the breast milk. And it's an interesting side effect is that almost all the commercial infant formulas sold in this country are just devastatingly crap, and they're really causing huge problems in infants who are using that as an exclusive form of nutrition. So definitely anything you can do for promoting breastfeeding is just extraordinary.
Absolutely. And, there's so many things that get brought across. And I just on a point of reference on that, because I'm so into immune system technology and immune system research. Dr. Lawrence's research about transfer factors. Do you recall that research? About 60 years ago, he discovered that the smallest molecules in a mammal's milk, your mom's breast milk, is actually what carries the immunity information. And that, I find that very fascinating. And what apparently is carrying it is the high spin water that's in the milk of a mammal. And that's really all about hydrogen. And that kind of guides us into a little bit what I want to touch on. And I mentioned this product line to you before, is Dr. Patrick Flanagan's Mega Hydrate.
Sure.
And his Crystal Energy product, which are phenomenal anti-inflammatories. I just think they're some of the greatest youthening products out there as well. And you had mentioned about oxidation of oils. Something I've been made aware of by Patrick, who developed those products, and also by just my own experience, is that as you digest oils, let's say you're digesting, a krill oil, whatever it is, you're going to have a reaction in your gut that's going to go into digestion. You're going to have acids produced. You're going to have enzymes secreted. That can actually increase oxidation of the substance. And therefore, you may only get, who knows, maybe it's 10%, 40% delivered to the cells. What I've noticed by taking Mega Hydrate and or Crystal Energy with everything is that it increases that delivery. For example, if I take krill oil, I feel the delivery into my nervous system, whereas I never felt it before if I don't take the Mega Hydrate with it. The Mega Hydrate is an antioxidant delivery system. So whatever you're taking it with gets there without oxidation. It shields it in the way that the astaxanthin, as you mentioned, shielded the substances.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about krill is it's attached to a phospholipid, typically phosphatidylcholine, I think, or phosphatidylserine. And that attachment really is what allows almost 100% absorption, is unlike fish oil, which tends to be relatively poorly absorbed and causes the belching and burping that many people have. So that's why you don't get it with krill. But it tends to really work pretty well and get it to the tissue it needs to. But I'm wondering on this Mega Hydrate, I've read the literature for that before, and it seems that one of the benefits of promoting is these hydrogen ions or electrons. And I'm wondering what, from your experiences, because I was trying to resolve this discrepancy, or not discrepancy, but resolve it between the electrons that are transferred through a product like Mecahydrin relative to the ones that you would get through grounding that you talked about earlier.
That's a great question, and I've been trying to resolve that myself. I have heard it said that when you go outside and you walk barefoot on the earth, you are actually absorbing hydrogen right through your feet. Mm-hmm. It's coming out of the earth, and it's the carrier of the electron. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to dig into that with Clint Ober this weekend. I'm going to talk to him specifically about that.
Well, please enlighten me when you resolve it. Because
I do that.
Someone asked me a question, actually one of our subscribers, and I was just trying to resolve it, and I just couldn't figure it out. But I just concluded that it was just, my approach is always the natural, the simpler, the better. So it'd probably be better and less expensive and less toxic just to walk in the ground and rather take a product. But that may be an oversimplification.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a gating system for sure when we walk outside barefoot. So, for example, we're really designed to be barefoot all the time, and that's impossible today. And therefore, the gating system doesn't allow those electrons to fully penetrate all the way into our system unless we're grounded all the time. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, yeah.
It takes a while for all those electrons to get deep in our system. So if we can bring them in other ways, for example, through antioxidants, which by the way, just to simplify that, can be understood as pigments of color. I mean, that's really what an antioxidant is. There's some exceptions, of course, but in general, foods that are richly pigmented, like blueberries or goji berries or spirulina or astaxanthin, the color pigment is the antioxidant, and in particular, that color pigment is a hydrogen concentrate. The same could be said with oils, like fats and oils that are really good in antioxidant qualities. Just simple raw nuts like pecans or almonds are good antioxidants because the fat is carrying a huge amount of hydrogen, it's free electricity, negatively charged electricity, and that actually helps to nourish our electrical system of our body, which is, by the way, is a very important system. When we become electrical deficient, for example, we become deficient in negatively charged electricity, which could be understood as negatively charged hydrogen, that's